Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a physician running a practice or an investor eyeing the healthcare space right now, you're going to want to pay very close attention. Today, we're fundamentally reframing how we look at the absolute massive friction in healthcare billing. We all know the pain, right? For doctors, it's that relentless burnout from charting late at night just to get paid. For investors, it's watching margins get literally eaten alive by administrative bloat. We aren't just talking about a minor software tweak today. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift, removing structural uncertainty to fix exactly where the system breaks.
Let's just dive right into this massive number right here. $100 billion. That is the staggering size of the revenue cycle management, or RCM, industry. Let's pause and really let that sink in for a second. That's larger than the GDP of entire countries. We've basically built this massive economic ecosystem out of simply trying to get doctors paid for work they've already done. It's kind of wild when you stop to think about it. But to really grasp the immense opportunity hidden inside that number, we have to look critically at what this industry actually does all day.
And here's the hard truth. The entire RCM ecosystem, it isn't an efficiency engine. Not at all. It is literally a reactive correction layer. Think about it. It's an entire industry built specifically to clean up upstream clinical noise. Coding services, billing teams, denial management, RPA workflows, they all exist just to react to and reconcile the messy data created at the point of care. Imagine a doctor writing a perfectly reasonable clinical note during a crazy shift. Days later, a coder misinterprets it, and suddenly, this massive administrative machine kicks in just to try and salvage the claim. That is a correction layer in action.
Which leads us to a genuinely fascinating question. If we have all this incredible tech, all these expensive EMR systems, and massive clearinghouses, why on earth are we still spending billions trying to fix broken claims? Think about the sheer volume of software a typical clinic buys. It's staggering. So why can you document a patient encounter perfectly, yet still spend weeks chasing down the payment from an insurance company? Well, the answer isn't a lack of tools. The reality is we've been trying to fix the entirely wrong end of the pipeline.
The absolute root of this problem is what we call structural uncertainty. Let me explain. Every single day, clinical reality gets distorted as it moves into claims. A physician has clinical intent, right? They assess complex symptoms, make a diagnosis, order specific tests. Imagine a doctor spending 20 minutes treating a complex diabetic patient with multiple comorbidities. They know exactly what's happening. But when that nuanced, unstructured narrative gets translated into strict financial and claims outputs, unpredictable variability is created. The billing output just looks like a generic checkup code, completely missing the complexity of the care provided. The reality of the clinic just doesn't translate cleanly to the payer.
Think about the massive translation gap we're dealing with here. On one side, you have unstructured clinical intent, the messy, complex, deeply human narrative of a doctor's thought process. On the other side, the extremely rigid, para-ready 5010 EDI format. Claims aren't just simple data objects. They are highly structured, unforgiving transactions. You can't just slap some AI on a medical note and expect it to magically speak the precise, machine-readable language of the clearinghouse. It's a language where thousands of lines of code can reject a massive claim over a single missing digit or a misplaced modifier.
Okay, moving on to our next section, let's talk about the healthcare billing myth. So the crucial point here is exactly what this quote highlights, straight from billing experts on the front lines. You cannot fix AR by working backward from denial outcomes. For the investors out there, you've probably seen countless startups pitching bots that scrape payer portals or analyze accounts receivable thinking that faster billing somehow means fewer denials. But that fundamentally misunderstands the system. Relying on downstream AI to fix broken claims is literally like trying to unburn a cake. You're applying the fix way after the structural damage is already done. If you run a practice, you know this hard reality in your bones. These uncontrollable payer realities. Things like patient eligibility mismatches when someone switches insurance without telling the front desk, division of financial responsibility or DFOR disputes, out-of-network constraints, and let's not forget the absolute absurdity of random W-9 audits. Seriously, nothing drains a clinic's soul quite like having payment held hostage because a payer randomly decided they need a faxed copy of a W-9 you've already sent 3 times. These are structurally uncontrollable and non-deterministic realities. You simply cannot software your way out of a payer's internal policy change. Now, for investors looking at healthcare, this breakdown right here is the real moat. You have to ruthlessly separate what you can control from what you can't. Look at the uncontrollables, payer randomness and DOFR, not solvable. Those are external system behaviors, heavily gated by legacy institutions. Eligibility lag, maybe partially solvable. But now contrast that with documentation quality and coding, fully solvable. You can't control the payer, but you can control exactly what you send to them, ensuring every single claim is structurally valid before it ever leaves your building. That is the ultimate leverage point.
Which brings us to the upstream advantage.
Instead of correcting a flawed claim after the fact, what if we convert clinical intent into structured claims data right at the point of care? Think about how radical this shift is compared to traditional 30-day billing cycles. Why let ambiguity enter the system at all? Picture this: the doctor is speaking to the patient, and the clinical restructuring is happening in that exact moment. If we capture the data perfectly right then and there, we shift billing entirely from an interpretive, error-prone guessing game into a highly deterministic science.
This new architecture flows in 3 highly deterministic steps. First up, AI clinical capture. This turns ambient voice, just the natural conversation in the exam room, into a highly structured clinical note without the doctor typing a single word. Second, that note runs through an MDM, or medical decision-making reasoning engine. This engine basically thinks like an expert auditor, mapping the severity, the risk, and the data directly to the correct codes. Finally, step 3. The claim compiler takes that structured data and maps it straight into the strict loops and segments of the 5010 claim schema. It perfectly translates the human element into the exact digital format the clearinghouse demands.
Imagine a world where a doctor never gets an annoying message from a coder 3 days later asking for details about a patient they've already forgotten. Real-time visit coding means it's accurate at the point of care. By doing this in real time, the AI prompts the physician for CMS 2021 MDM completeness immediately. If the doctor forgets to explicitly document the risk of morbidity, the system essentially taps them on the shoulder before the patient even walks out the door. You aren't just automating a back-end task here. You are proactively preventing a structurally invalid claim from ever being created in the first place.
And this sets us up for our final section, the deterministic future. The structural impact and downstream results of this approach are absolutely massive. For physician SMBs, you're looking at materially declining denial rates, higher clean claim rates, because you've successfully eliminated the preventable errors at the source. You drastically reduce your dependency on human coding interpretations, which severely lowers administrative overhead. And for the investors tuning in, this means a significantly compressed revenue cycle with highly predictable cash flow. When cash flow is predictable, healthcare businesses can actually invest in better care and drive higher EBITDA. You're cutting out the friction that completely eats up margins. We're shifting the entire stack from a reactive, downstream correction to proactive, deterministic, upstream precision. Now, let's be perfectly realistic for a second. Denials won't completely disappear. Payers will always be payers, right? They'll still ask for medical records, they'll still ask for those pesky W-9s, but what we absolutely do eliminate is the ambiguity in that clinical to claims translation. We make sure the claim is completely audit-proof and fully supported from second one. And audit-proof is definitely the magic word here for everyone involved. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Why keep putting expensive bandages on a broken system when we finally have the tools to solve the translation gap right at its source? Seriously, are you ready to stop optimizing the revenue cycle and start making it obsolete? We don't need to keep tweaking a broken engine. We need to restructure the data so that the revenue cycle as we know it today becomes entirely a thing of the past. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I hope this sparks some new ideas on the true, game-changing value of upstream data.